Hey guys, welcome to our fourth video in our Next.js tutorial series. So today in this video I have already noted down what we will cover. So there are four topics. The first one is CSS support. So this is basically built-in support. So basically we'll be looking at how Next.js supports CSS, built-in CSS support. And then the next topic is if you want to enable your website to use SAAS or SCSS preprocessors for CSS file, then you can use that also. So we'll be looking at how we can set up that. It's pretty easy. Then we have image component, which is I think one of the coolest thing about Next.js is this image component. So it is basically similar to what we have used as in link, right? So this is pretty much same, but it has different configurations, of course. So we'll be looking into that. So when we'll cover these image component, we'll be looking at how we can customize this image component basically for our global app. Okay, so suppose if you want to generate images for different sizes, that also you can do it at build time. So we'll be looking into that also. So let's start by first thing. Let's start with CSS support. So if you have scaffold the project from create next app, then you already have the basic CSS support and setup. So I'll just quickly go through it. So if you see in the styles file, we have two styles, global.css and home.module.css. Now it's not mandatory to use styles folder, unlike pages. So pages is one of the necessary components that Next.js requires. So you must have a page folder, and public folder as well, because this is where you will put all your assets. But style is not that important. You can create a CSS folder or any other folder that you want to store your CSS in. So Next.js basically support two types of CSS. First one is global CSS and the second one is module based CSS. Now let's talk about what is the difference. So global, as you know, it will be applied globally over your application, right? So the global CSS can only be imported in the this app component that we have created. So this is basically a default component that you can override from Next.js, and inside this component only you can import the CSS file. If you try to import it in any of the pages, it will fail directly. So this is all about global CSS. So global CSS will be available for every page, so you can just define the CSS file CSS properties that are available for all the pages. Then we have a module based CSS. So these module based CSS are the basically CSS for your page or the component. Suppose if you're building a button component and you want to have a separate CSS file for that button, so you can create this module.css. So remember that this module is really important in the file name. Suppose if I go ahead and create any abcd.css file, it will be treated as a global CSS. So you cannot directly import this in any page. You'll have to add the module in order to tell Next.js that okay, this is a module based CSS. This means we can import it in the any of your pages or any of your custom components that you have created. Okay, so if I go to the index.js, here if you see, we are already importing this home.module.css. So you can just import it as you normally import in React component. But one thing to notice here, you cannot just import this CSS, because then it will be treated as global CSS as per React architecture. So since the global CSS is not allowed in our pages or components, so you'll have to import it as a styles. And if you want to place the classes that you have defined in your CSS, you can just do styles.container or styles.main, and this main and container are your basically CSS that you have defined here. Okay, this container main. So this is all about built-in support for CSS in Next.js. So I'll just mark this off. So the next one is SAAS and SCSS. So suppose you don't want to use normal plain CSS, you want to have SCSS or CSS SAAS basically. So what you can do it, you can just go to a new command line. I'll just create one, and you can just simply install the SAAS dependency. That's all you need to do. So you will do in yarn install SAAS. If you're running on npm, you can do npm install SAAS. It's pretty slow today, I don't know why. Okay, so here you can just do not install. If you're using yarn, you will have to do yarn add SAAS. So this will install this SAAS dependency. Once it is installed, you can just rename all the files to SCSS and or SAAS. It will work. So I'll just rename it to SCSS, because if I use SAAS, I'll have to change the syntax also, because in SAAS we don't use this parentheses and semicolons. So I'll make it a SAAS, and this also I'll change. So these two are changed. Now we can just use some SAAS features. Let me see. We don't have any features as such, so let's create one. So suppose in the anchor we want, if someone hovers over a link, we want to show it as a red. Okay, so this is how you can basically write CSS in SAAS if you haven't tried it yet. So go check it out if you want a tutorial or a short video in learning about SCSS or SAAS. You can just put it in the comment. I'll take a look. Okay, I'll now save it. So we have installed it, so it should work. I'll just go to this one. Okay, so what happened is we renamed all the files to SCSS, but in the import we also have to change this, because it is again pointing to the CSS file only. So let me go ahead and change these two. Okay, so now it is compiled. So if we go down here, we can see that our CSS is applied, and if we hover over any link, we'll see that the color of the link changes to red color. So this is all about SAAS or CSS support. I already told you that it would be easy. We just installed a dependency and we renamed our files. That's all. Okay, now let's move on to image component, which is a fun part actually. So first of all, we need some images in order to demonstrate the image component. Okay, we are here, so we'll just copy any of these images. So let's copy this one. This one is from MailChimp. So we'll just right click and we'll copy the image location. We'll come down here, and what we'll do is in our about page, we'll just display this image. So we'll not do anything fancy. We'll just wrap it up. I'll just wrap this up in a div. Normal image tag, just we use it in our HTML, and in src we'll pass the path of the image. Okay, so let's check this out. So let's wait for the compilation first. Okay, it's compiled now, so let's go to about. So as you can see here that we have our image. It's pretty big, but okay, we'll see how we can work with this. Okay, so now that we know how we can use the normal HTML image, what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and import the image component given by Next. So we'll say import image from Next image. So as I told you, it is very similar to link component. So similarly, you can import image from next/image, and you don't have to install anything. Now we'll pass the same URL in our image tag basically. So one thing to notice here is if I save this, it will throw an error saying that we are not passing. Okay, let me just take it down so that we can see all the properties. So it will throw an error saying that the width of this image is not defined. So this is one important thing about Next.js, that if you're using this image component, you must define the width and height of that particular image, the original width and height of that particular image. So not the ratio, nothing, just the original width and height. So I know it sounds fishy because there will be use cases where you don't want to use the width and height of the image. You want to stretch it, or you want to zoom it, right, in order to fit a container or something else, right? but I'll show you how we can do that is still by passing the width and height. So there's a reason we pass the width and height of the image for the optimization, but we even after passing the width and height, we can just do all those customizations that we are wishing for, right? So I'll just show you that. So here you can see that it throws an error saying that these three properties are not there, which is width, height and layout. So these are the mandatory properties that we need to pass in. So I'll just open the Next.js documentation for this image component so that we can look at all the properties one by one. I'll go to docs, then this image optimization. Here we see the image component. Okay, here I think we'll have the so here you can see we have src, which is where we pass our link basically for the image. Then we have width and height. So let's go ahead and give our image width and height. So what we'll do is we'll try to find the width and height for this particular image. So we'll just inspect the element, and that should give us the actual width and height of the particular image. So let me just, okay, now we are here. You can see that the width of this image is 1356 and 904. So we'll just pass in width. So it will be number, so you cannot pass it as a string because again it will fail. So you must pass in number. So as per the HTML guideline, you cannot pass number. I mean, you cannot just pass anything like you cannot pass number like this in HTML property. You will have to put it as a string only. But in React we can use this expression binding. So we'll just put the expression binding and we'll pass the number that we want. So again I forgot, let me look back. So it's 1356, so we'll say 1356. You don't have to give pixel because by default it is pixel only. Then we can give height as well. So I think height is 904, and then we'll have the layout. So let's talk about layout first. So we'll just go to the next.js documentation and we'll look at the layout. So layout has basically these four properties. It supports these four properties, which is fixed, intrinsic and responsive and fill. So fixed is basically whatever width and height that you are passing, that will be fixed across the screen sizes. Across the viewport changes, it will be fixed. There will be no responsiveness. So whatever width and height you are passing, it will remain same. So this could be useful for avatars that we use, right? So if you visit a website like Facebook or any other dashboard type websites, you will see that you have a small avatar right here for your profile. Just like we have this GitHub icon, it will be your profile photo, and if you click on it, it will probably take you to the profile page, or it will open up a bunch of things. So for these cases, you can just use this fixed, and you can fix the height and width of that particular image, and then of course you can apply the border radius to circle it up. Then we have this intrinsic, which basically it will scale down for smaller viewports and maintain the original dimension for larger viewports. So what does it mean is basically, suppose if you have an image of let's say this width and height, right? So if the actual width of the screen that the website is getting loaded at, if it is lesser than this or is equal to than this, it will try to shrink the image in a responsive manner. It will maintain the aspect ratio of this particular image, but it will scale down so that it fits the viewport, right? And if you go beyond this number, like if you have a screen size of let's say 1800 or 9020, so this will not change, this will remain same. So if you are passing 1356, it will remain 1356, but for smaller it will try to shrink. Makes sense, right? Okay, then we have this responsive. Now responsive is the best part. So suppose it is very similar to intrinsic. What happens is in that basically when we change the viewport to smaller width of the image, what it will do, it will shrink the image, right? But if we maximize the viewport, suppose here we are passing 1356 and the viewport the website is getting loaded is 1980, something like that, right? So it will try to increase this width also for that particular image. So this 1356 will eventually become 1980 if you are loading this image in that big screen. Of course your image may get blurred, but you can take care of the quality by passing a high definition image, right? But this is what it does, unlike intrinsic. Then we have this fill. Now fill is for suppose if you look at like unsplash only. So let me close this. So if you look at images like the background one, the stars and mountain, so these images are not actual. So what happens is, if you want to build something like this, usually what happens is the size of the image varies, right, with the container that you are using. And if it is responsive, then it's just nightmares, because the container with height will also change. Then you have the image with an height that you will have to maintain. So for those cases we have this fill, where it will try to basically fit on the parent object that you are passing. So suppose if your parent's width is 100% and then its height is 420, the image will basically stretch, just try to take all the parent space, whatever space is there, just like in this container it's happening. So in our case we'll just pass responsive because we don't want all those things, but I can show you all of them if you want. So let's try one by one. Let's go with fixed and we'll check it out in responsive and in bigger screens as well. So for now I'm passing layout as fixed. So let me go back to this page. Let's wait for the compilation. So it's done. Now I'll just try to refresh it and I'll open the console also. Okay, we have one more error. Okay, so here you can see we are getting one error that this host name image.unsplash.com is not configured under the next.js configuration. So this I wanted to cover in this topic actually, the configuration topic, but it's okay. I think they have made it mandatory, earlier it wasn't. So now if you want to load any image, you will have to pass the domain in the configuration. So what we can do is we can just go to the next.js configuration file. Okay, I just remember that we haven't created that file yet, right? Because we didn't need it. So what we'll do is we'll just create a new file. We'll call it next.config.js and we'll do module.export, and here we'll have to export an object, and in the object we'll say image, and this image will have its own configurations. In that we'll have domains, where we'll define all the domains that we want to use. So I'll just go back here and I'll just copy what's the domain? Yeah, this one. I'll just copy this domain, and okay, so it will automatically reload all the components, so we don't need to. Okay, actually it needs a restart to apply the changes in the configuration. So we'll just restart the server and wait for the compilation. Okay guys, so it is now compiled. So we had few things. So let me just go back to the about. Okay, so it is compiled now and we are using layout fix. So let's just go and check it out. So you can see we have our image here. Now what we'll do is we'll change the screen size and we'll try to see that if the image size remains same. So as you can see, we are now on lower screen, but the image size is same, it doesn't change, right? So and if we go to the higher screen sizes, it will remain same again. So this is the fixed layout. Basically it maintains whatever width and height you are giving to your image, and I have already told you where you can use this. Now let's go to the intrinsic one. So this is supposed to, if you are going responsive, if you're going to smaller screen sizes, then it will basically minify your image, and if you are going higher resolutions, then it will not change. It will maintain the width, whatever width you are passing. So it's more like what in CSS we usually do max width, right? So it's similar to that. So let's check it out, this behavior as well. So okay, so it's done now, I think. So since our current viewport is basically bigger than the image itself, so you can see that it is maintaining the actual width and height of the image that we have passed. Now we'll try to reduce the size and check. So let me just go to iPad. Okay, here you can see that we are not scroll passing anywhere. The image is exactly fitting the viewport, which is 100% width. Now we'll just try to change the let me add few mobile devices as well, and laptop devices. Okay, now let's try with the laptop. So this is, of course, the screen is bigger, so image remains same. Now let's go to mobile. Let's go to iPhone. So in the iPhone, if you see the width here, we can see that 414, and the image is also basically fitting the screen. It is not changing. So if we go down also, it will maintain this screen size. Basically it will maintain the image aspect ratio, and it will reduce the compressed size of the image. And if we go higher, it will try to maintain that as well until we surpass the actual width of the image that we are passing. But in case of responsive, what it will do, even if we expand the size, it should take the whole width. So let's check that as well. Okay, let's wait for the compilation. Okay, it's done, I guess. So now what we'll do, we'll just make it bigger. So as you can see, in the smaller one also it will try to maintain the same thing. But if we go large enough, also it will try to maintain the width. As you can see that it is basically taking up all the width. So now we'll look at fill. So there's one. So in case of fill, if you are passing the layout fill, then you don't need to pass the width and height, because this is not relevant anymore. So either you pass the width and height. So by default it is intrinsic in Next.js. So if you are passing only width and height, then the layout will be intrinsic unless you set it to responsive. And if you are using layout fill, then you don't need to pass width and height, because it doesn't matter what is the width and height of your image, it will always try to fit the parent. Okay, so if you see our CSS has compiled, and this is the image that we are getting. So let's try to change the size here. Okay, so one thing to notice here, that if you are giving fill, then you will have to pass it position also to the parent. That position should be relative. So that's what happening here. Since the image will have this position absolute, it will try to break the layout. So for the parent, if you keep it relative, it will not let it break. So as you can see, I have kept it relative for the parent, and now it is trying to fill out the container. So I have given 100% width and 320 pixel the height basically. So it is trying to fill out the container with the image. So here if I decrease and increase the size, you can see how it is trying to fill, right? So all the image that you put in your website with this image component, everything is automatically optimized at the build time. But again, you can pass several parameters in order to configurations in order to optimize more. So few configurations that we support here is, by the way, you can also, you can also try different things with the image component. So let's go one by one what are all parameters it takes, because it's really interesting. You don't have to do anything for the loader as such. So we have a loader also in the in the properties. If you pass loader, and in the loader you'll pass the basically the this thing, right? This method, this component, basically it's a React component only. So if you pass this loader, it will show the loader only. Suppose this is basically a GIF, a loading GIF, or it could be a React component as well. So this will basically show this loader until the image is loaded. So what happens in next.js is if a user basically visits your website, the image will get loaded as user scrolls the website. Okay, so that time you can show this loader, or you can just show a skeleton of that image. So here they are trying to load an image, so you can have it in your public folder as well for all the image, a skeleton, and that will be stored. Then these are the media queries. So if you are putting layout responsive or fill, you can use the sizes, to change the behavior of the image. Like in layout fill, we are seeing that it is compressing the image, right? It is compressing the image to fit the parent. But this is if you don't want this behavior, you can use this size basically to change it. So if you go to learn more, you can read more about this here, how you can use the different sizes. Then we have quality. So you can also say if you are loading the image with this image component, you can tell them like on what quality you want to load the image. So suppose if you are using it in a thumbnail basis, so you can decrease the quality for that, and if you are using it in a banner basis, you can increase the quality. We'll check this out when we will build the actual project actually. So for now I think this is enough. So we'll check it out later when we build the actual project. So what I wanted to show next, okay, let me just tick mark this one, and then we'll move on to the configurations. So here you can see that we have the configurations as well. So the first one is domain, that we have already covered. Then the loader. So if you want to set a default loader for all the images, then you can use this one. By the way, this loader is pretty different from what we saw in here in the image component. This loader is for configuration. So this loader basically tells next.js from which source you are fetching the image. So usually what happens if you are building a blog or a website with next.js, so you will be using a storage where you will be storing all your images or video as such, right? So that storage could be any of one. Like it can be Vercel as well, it can be Imagix, it can be Cloudinary, it can be Akamai. So if you are using Cloudinary, in the loader you will pass Cloudinary. So it will know, okay, you are fetching images from Cloudinary, and it already knows, it has the awareness of the API that Cloudinary uses, right? So you can just pass in the loader Cloudinary, and you can pass the path, basically the path of your account for the Cloudinary, and it will, and then you don't have to pass the full URL here. You will just pass the relative. Suppose in Cloudinary you have a file name like image or display image or something like that. So you will just write this display image, and at build time next will look for this configuration, this loader configuration, and it will know that okay, you are trying to fetch from Cloudinary, and it will fetch from that particular Cloudinary account. So it also uses all the optimization that Cloudinary does. So if you have used Cloudinary, when you will try to fetch a resource from the Cloudinary, it gives you in different parameters, in different formats. So it will have big, small, medium, thumbnail. So it tries to use like whatever quality you are passing, it will try to fetch that particular image from there. Then we have caching as well. So caching basically in the dist folder only, it tries to cache the image so that your build is basically faster. And it also provides client-side cache control. So if you want to cache it, suppose what happens is when you are writing a blog or any article as such, so in the blog you would see that you would be using a banner for the blog, right? So that banner generally never changes throughout the life cycle of that blog. So those kind of images which are big as well and it never changes, you can just enable the caching as well for those. Then we have this we'll check it out all these topics when we'll build the actual website. And then we have this, I just wanted to go through all this configuration so that you know, like Next support all these things, right? Then we have this device sizes where you can pass for so whatever in devices, whatever you will pass, it will try to create that many images. Okay, at build time only it will try to create that many images, and for based on what screen your website is getting loaded, it will try to fetch that particular screen sized image. So this one is pretty cool. And then we have image sizes as well. So you can define image sizes based on your device sizes, and it will create image for that particular size. Okay, so this is all I wanted to cover in this video, and in from next video we'll try to build a project directly, because we have a basic understanding of Next.js and we know how things work, right? At least basic things we know. So what we'll do is from chapter 2, so from next video it will become chapter 2, and from chapter 2 we'll be building a project. So we'll be building a portfolio project with blogging functionality as well. So we'll be using Next.js inbuilt markdown support. We will not be using any CMS or anything, any API as such. So whatever we will be using, it will basically reside in the Next.js application only. So this will be a great project for learning. So if you want to learn, just keep following, and you can always find the code on the GitHub. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.